Welcome to another video, the same every time, IGCSE Maths, GCSE Maths, looking at the kind of questions that apart from the numbers are the same every time. We can learn how to do them, you'll recognise them on your exam, you'll know what to do, you'll get yourself the marks, you'll get yourself into the grades. In these videos we're looking at vectors, vector questions, vectors this time with numbers. There are two different types of vector questions. The vector questions that have numbers in them and the vector questions that have pictures in them. In this particular set of videos, we're looking at vector questions with numbers. So we've got part A, work out 6 negative 5 plus 8 negative 1. Now, just a quick review of what a vector actually is. So if I've got, for example, the vector 6 negative 5, written in brackets like that, 6 on the top, negative 5 at the bottom, then the vector describes a movement. So the top number describes how far I'm moving to the left or right, and the bottom number describes how far I'm moving up or down. So in this case, that just means I'm going to start, say, here, and I'm going to move 6 places, 6 squares, whatever, 6 squares that way, and then I'm going to move 5 downwards. So my final movement is from there to there, like that. So that's my vector 6 negative 5, 6 across to the right and 5 down. But in terms of these videos, in terms of learning how to do the maths, it doesn't necessarily matter what the vector actually means. What it's telling us, we can learn how to do the questions anyway. So when I'm adding vectors together, I literally do exactly what you would think I do. I add along the top and I add along the bottom. So along the top, 6 plus 8 will give me 14. And then along the bottom, be a little bit careful, negative 5 plus negative 1. So negative 5 plus negative 1 is the same thing as negative 5 minus 1. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So think about your number line. Start at negative 5, go 1 backwards, 1 to the left, takes you to negative 6. Of course, if it's a calculator paper, you could do that on your calculator if you weren't sure about it. Multiplying a vector. Geometrically speaking, what happens when I multiply a vector is I get a vector, a movement in the same direction, but longer. So 3 multiplied by negative 4, 7. The vector negative 4, 7 would be 4 that way, like that, and then 7 upwards. So let's say that's 7. So my vector negative 4, 7 would be going like that. And if I multiply it by 3, it would be basically the same direction, but 3 times the length. But that doesn't matter in these videos. What do we do when we're multiplying a vector by a number? We do exactly what we would expect to do. Just multiply each number in the vector by the number outside. 3 times negative 4, negative 12. 3 times 7, 21. There we are. That's a good 2 marks for those 2 questions. The next question, actual real-life exam question. Vector A equals 5, negative 7. Vector B, 6, negative 7. And notice the notation that they're using for vectors here. It's one of the ways of writing a vector in a small letter written in bold. So if you see anywhere on your exam a small letter written in bold, lowercase letter written in bold, then it's a vector. So A minus B, start with vector A, 5, negative 7, minus vector B, 6, negative 7. And then we do exactly what we would expect to do. Along the top, 5 minus 6. Be very careful, of course. That takes us into the negatives. 5 minus 6, negative 1. And then negative 7 along the bottom. Negative 7 minus negative 7. Well, minus minus gives us a plus. Negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Well, it's an actual 0. Don't leave an empty space or just write negative 1 for your answer or anything like that. The final answer is negative 1, 0. Okay, so another exam question, exactly the same thing that we did before. That's the idea of these videos. It's the same every time, isn't it? Why not you pause this, have a think about it, And while you're doing that, I will work through the question myself. So 3 multiplied by 6, negative 4. 3 times 6, 18. 3 times negative 4, negative 12. And then 4, negative 1 plus negative 7, 5. 4 plus negative 7, imagine your number line. Start at 4, positive 4. Adding a negative 7 is going 7 to the left, will take us to negative 3. Of course, if it's a calculator paper, you can do that on your calculator. Negative 1 plus 5, starting at negative 1 on the number line, adding a 5 will take you to positive 4. So another exam question and another way of writing vectors. When you see 2 capital letters with an arrow over the top, that's a vector. Notice in these questions, none of the questions actually seems to involve the word vector. They just assume that you know what these letters and numbers in brackets like this actually mean. So when we say GH with an arrow on the top, we mean actually we have 2 points. So for example, we have the point there called G, and we're moving from point G to H. We're going 6 across, so 6 across, and 4 down. Negative 4 makes 4 down. So from there to there like that, going 6 across, 4 down will take us to the point H. So GH with an arrow over the top, that's the vector that takes us from point G to point H, 6 across, 4 down. Okay, they want 5 times GH, so we just multiply the vector by 5. So 5 times 6, 30. 5 times negative 4, negative 20. Notice I'm trying to do these questions non-calculator. Some of the exam boards do have non-calculator questions. Cambridge, for example, has a non-calculator paper. AQA, if you're doing the GCSE, they have a non-calculator part as well. Okay, H to G. H to G. Right, maybe I'll bring my diagram back up again here. So G to H. If I start at G and move to H, I'm going 6 across, 6 to the right, and negative 4, so that's 4 down. And that will take me to point H. Now, when it says HG, I need to start at point H and go to point G. So if I start at point H and go to point G, I have to basically let's say I need to go that way, so I can start off by going that way. It's the across first. Left or right is the top number, up or down is the bottom number. So going that way, I would need to go negative 6, and then I have to go 4 upwards like that. Just to make it absolutely clear, I will write negative 4 there. 4 down is negative 4. So 6 across, 4 down to go from G to H. To go from H to G, across, I have to go negative 6. So 6 to the left and then 4 up. So H to G is negative 6, 4. Now, do you notice that GH was 6, negative 4? All we've done to go back in the opposite direction, to go H to G, I've just changed the signs. I've reversed the signs. So negative becomes positive, positive becomes negative. Part B here looks like it's going to be complicated, but I'm not so sure that it is. They want the value of y, so we've got this missing number here. So we've got 2 vectors added together, 6, 7 plus 2y equals 8, 3. So when we're adding the vectors, we add together the numbers on the top, and 6 plus 2 does definitely equal 8, so that's great. And along the bottom, we would have 7 plus y equals 3. So 7 plus something equals 3. Okay, so I can just think of the answer, I suppose, can't I? I know that 7 take away 4 is 3. So if I put y equals negative 4, 7 plus negative 4, 7 minus 4, which is 3. Or if you want to solve it like solving a proper equation, the positive 7 can go to the other side. Y equals 3 minus 7, which is negative 4. So even though that question actually looks perhaps a little bit trickier than the others. Yeah, it's just a missing number question, isn't it? 7 plus what makes 3? Well, there you are. Hopefully, if you see questions like that on your exam, okay, they're not massively high-scoring questions, are they? 1 mark, I think, for each question there. But the point is, you get all the 1-mark questions and they all add up. So if you do see questions like that on your exam, hopefully you are going to be able to recognize what to do and to be able to answer those questions. Thank you very much for watching the video. If it was useful to you, then please do like and subscribe. I will return in the next one.